After a breakout event in 2016, the Octagon is heading back to the Netherlands. On today's show, we preview all the upcoming action at Fight Night Rotterdam, including the colossal main event matchup between the local hero Stefan Struve and Russian powerhouse Alexander Volkov. Germaine de Randami will also be flying the Dutch flag when she returns home to face the Belizean bruiser Marion Renaud. We preview this bantamweight battle, and Dan goes on the mat to see how the devastating kickboxing ability of the Iron Lady matches up with the slick ground game of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Also, we head inside the training camp of top British prospect Leon Edwards as he prepares to face Brian Bam Bam Barbarina. And undefeated welterweight Darren Till joins us live in the studio to discuss his upcoming bout in Rotterdam against Serbian Steel Bojan Veličković. Welcome to UFC Breakdown, where we are talking all things Fight Night Rotterdam. And to give some detail and thoughts, my commentary partner Dan Hardy and combat sports journalist Nick Peet. So Nick, 2016 in Rotterdam was a great event. I have some great memories from there. A good night for the Dutch fans as well. Looking forward to this one. Yeah, well, they always come out in force. You know, they love a good stand-up battle. You know, in the history of fight sports, you know, Holland's right up there when it comes to striking. And last year they had the perfect ingredients. They had heavyweights at the top of the bill with Dutch links. And once again, we're back there this year with another heavyweight battle at the top of the card with strong links to local fans as well. So I'm expecting Roof to come off all over again. Yeah, oh, I hope so. Dan, the prelims, we have some new faces, some returning fighters, a lot of European flavour as well. What's jumping off the page for the prelims for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of spoiled for choice. Obviously, you know, I get excited when Mirbek Taisomov's on the card. I always like to see him fight. I think he's got unlimited potential in this sport, but Felipe Silva is going to be a real good test for him. The one that surprises me is Guti against Holbrook, kicking off the card. I mean, that is going to be a wild fight to start the night. Be in your seats early.
And then the main card, Nick, so we have loads to look at, especially the way that we're kicking off that main card as well in the welterweight division. Yeah, exactly. Edwards versus Barbarina, two guys that have put really good runs of form together in this welterweight division. Yet you could argue have never really had the opportunity. Very rarely do they get on the main card. Nice they come together now, kind of a winner takes all. One moves forward, one moves backwards. Massively interesting fight. And then we have Bahadrzada versus Wilkinson. One guy completely untested in the UFC, undefeated, but coming in, we've never seen this guy before, against the guy that on his day, an absolute killer. Co-main, of course, well, the Randamain and the co-main against Renaud. Now we're talking about a matchup that has got, you know, the same type of backstory as an episode of Game of Thrones, if you like. There's so much going on in the lives of these girls in the last 12 months that this is a must-see fight. And then top of the bill, as I say, perfect for the Dutch fans, Volkov against Struve, two absolute monsters that like to finish fights. A Game of Thrones reference early. I like it. So two top towering heavyweights will do battle in the main event. Struve with a home advantage, but he faces the very best of Russia's heavyweights in Alexander Volkov.
Alexander Volkov! Oh, good combination from Chago. Wow! Skyscraper! I'm back.
Two huge athletes. European bragging rights as well are up for grabs. Already we have a couple of ingredients to make this a great main event. Yeah, very much so. Volkov was obviously relatively new to the UFC, but he's come into the UFC on the back of being a world champion elsewhere. He's got a massive reputation, certainly in Russia, and he's coming in. He's coming ranked above Stefan Struve already. Struve, of course, fans know, been in the UFC for a long time, but we've had heart problems, we've had injury issues, we've had issues with belonging in the right camp. Has he settled down? Is he finally going to kick on? We're probably going to find out in this fight, John. Okay, yeah, good time for him as well in Rotterdam. But, Dan, what does this look like on paper?
Well, sticking with your Game of Thrones reference, it looks like a battle of giants, to be honest, John. Let's have a look at these two guys. So obviously, Stefan Struve, we know, 7 foot tall, is the tallest fighter on the roster, longest reach as well, only rivaled by John Jones, which is quite amazing. Volkov here, 6'7", coming in, 80-inch reach. Now, you've got to think he's usually the bigger man in these fights, so it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with the reach advantage of Stefan Struve. A lot of experience for both guys, but let's look at this. The striking is weighed heavy on Volkov's side, whereas the submission's obviously for Struve. Now, as we look down these stats, I've got to first clarify, the average fight time, it's 15 minutes for Volkov. That's because he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but the reality is he's got 15 first-round finishes, so don't let that mislead you. He is definitely a finisher. finisher. Stefan Struve's got quite a short fight time. He likes to get the fights done quickly as well. Now, 75% takedown defense is really big. That's going to be a key in this. The striking is somewhat similar, leans slightly towards Volkov, as I would expect and as I will point out in the playlists. But the takedown defense is going to be the key. 66% accuracy for Struve, 75% takedown defense for Volkov. He's going to be leaning on that very heavily in this fight, I think. So, calculated offense by Volkov. As I was saying, he's probably never fought a guy that's taller than him before, but he is definitely the fighter that can fight the tallest. He understands how to use his reach very well. Long-range kicks, long-range punches, and understanding how to move out of range as soon as somebody starts moving forward. Picks people off, lands nice chopping shots and wears them down, and then when he gets them back to against the fence, he can really start to lay into them. Now, he's got excellent footwork, and he's a very educated striker, and this is something that stood out to me in the Tim Johnson fight. You can see how he's shadowing that lead foot of Tim Johnson. Every time Johnson takes a step, Volkov steps slightly to the outside. He's lining up his right hand. That's what he's trying to do against the southpaw in Tim Johnson. So you can see here, Johnson kind of skirts the inside octagon, whereas you can see the blue spots, Volkov moves himself slowly closer towards Johnson. Now, what he's trying to do, he's trying to find a situation where he can step to the outside of Johnson's lead foot and barrel that right hand down the center to catch him. Here it is, steps outside the lead foot and cracks him with that long right hand. As I was saying, he really understands how to use his reach and how to fight like a tall fighter. But we see this a lot as well. He's quite happy to crash forward behind long-range punches, working into the uppercuts. Now, that's something we've seen Struve struggle with in the past. Against Roy Nelson and against Mark Hunt, he does back up in a straight line and he does get caught over the top. So expect Volkov to be trying to push forward and be quite aggressive in this one. Now, Struve, we've seen him grow up in the UFC, and his striking's always been developing, and I see it get better in every one of his outings. But this was the early days. This was him quite reckless, quite raw, obviously a talent, obviously a real prospect, but quite untidy at the same time. Now, he was the first person to hand a loss to the current UFC champion, Stipe Miocic, and he's all right-hand focused. But same thing again, he closes the distance. He doesn't use that massive reach advantage that he has over most of these guys. You can see how close he gets to Miocic as he's landing these punches. That right hand is the longest punch he throws in this whole combination. You'll see a short left hook here to finish off, but that was unnecessary. The work was done by the right hand. So look for Struve to be focusing on that and trying to close that distance. I would expect him to try and get this fight to the floor, though, because his submission skills are really what sets him apart in this division. And you can imagine with those long levers, he has all kinds of advantages when they do lock up. He's got great trips. Look at this beautiful outside reap here. He hooks the leg, and you can see that height advantage playing in as he tilts forward and leans over his opponent to bring him down to the canvas. There is an advantage in the height there, and obviously with those long levers, those long limbs, he can wrap people up and tie their limbs up so he can control them when they do hit the floor. The other thing that we've got to watch on the floor as well is that he's quite happy to roll to his back and take a chance to put himself in a bad position to get the finish. And when he gets a triangle locked up, because his legs are so long, he can get the ankle right into the knee crease so he can fold that and lock it in. Very, very difficult to get him loose. Same thing with the Darce choke here on Milanchuk, who tries to run over the fence to get out, but Struve still got that locked up. Those long arms, those long levers allow him to lock things in very tight and stop people escaping. And that shows you the confidence in his ground game. He's quite happy to jump guard, and you can see their beautiful armbar attack from guard bottom against LeVar Johnson. Gets the tap. So don't be surprised if he tries to take this fight to the floor in any way possible. He does like to crowd people, and he will wrap a neck if needs be, and this is a really nice sequence as well. Pat Barry does a good job of passing to side control, but this is again where the reach comes into play. Watch this. Struve bumps his hip out to the side. He posts on the thigh. Now, an 84-inch reach allows him to create a lot more space than most people would be able to, and that allows him to slide his leg in, get the hook on the top side to square his hips up, and then he's straight into a triangle. And going back to what I was saying before, once it's locked in, it's so difficult to get out of that situation. He's able to get the triangle locked in very deep, and he keeps it locked in no matter what. When he knows he's got the finish, when he's got a bite on his opponent, he will not let go. So what does Volkov have to do in this situation? He has to slow him down. He has to manage his range. This is something he's very good at. We see him use a lot of forearms, a lot of whizzers and underhooks and overhooks, but creating space to land shots. This is an earlier fight before his UFC career. He uses the forearm to pry his opponent away, to create some space so he can land good, solid hammer fists, which got him the ground and pound finish in this fight. As you would imagine with the Roy Nelson fight, trying to close that distance and crowd his opponent was Roy Nelson's game plan. So Volkov was very conscious of the space being closed, of what he needed to do to create that space and to find his way out and back into striking range. And he's quite happy to crash forward. He knows he's got good takedown defense, so he will take risks to put himself in these situations. He's got great balance, and look at this, a good awareness of every single range, everything that may be a potential takedown in these situations. He's able to find a way out. He knows how to deconstruct them, reverse engineer them, fight their grips, and turn back in so he can create space and get back to his striking. It's an absolutely fascinating matchup, but the taller man in this one is not necessarily going to be the one that's using the reach.
That's an interesting take, isn't it? To see, you know, Struve, who's always got that reach advantage, might not have the advantage. And I think Volkov, coming from that karate background, is very good at direct, straight kicks and punches. Struve sometimes uses hooks and things of that nature. Although I did see against Omielanchuk, he was using his long legs and kicks to try and keep the range. What is your take? How do you think that Volkov approaches this?
I think in terms of, well, for Volkov, I think what we're going to see is a far more explosive performance than what we've seen previously. I think so far in the UFC, he's been matched with the two best chins in the heavyweight division, which is why fans are thinking a bit like, what's the furor over this guy for? You know, this knockout merchant, we've seen him go the distance twice because he's the guys he's been in with. I think Stefan Struve's a different animal. We know he can be hurt. We know he can be caught on the chin. I think Volkov will go chin hunting in that regard. But you're right, I think Struve needs to, like in his last fight, needs to use them kicks, try and keep him at range, and then when he closes the distance, maybe even pull guard.
2-0 Volkov in the UFC, but I mean, for fans that don't know much about him, he's had some notable wins in his career.
Of course, yeah. Outside of the UFC, as I say, the guy's a former world champion, vastly respected, you know, fought across Russia, held the M1 title for some time, you know, and he has chosen to leave what has been a very good financial position for him with a rival promotion to come to the best promotion in the world, to prove he's the best heavyweight in the world. Yeah. That's how confident he is in his own ability. He's
also a fairly fast starter, as Dan was talking about, and Struve, conversely, I think he's only had 3 first-round wins and 4 of his 6 losses have come in the first round. So that could be interesting. But Dan, Stefan Struve, I mean, the guy's had a real rocky road, hasn't he?
He has.
Health issues and a bunch of other stuff. This is a great opportunity to start putting the win streak together, though. You
know, things are slowly starting to fall into place for Stefan Struve. We saw him when he first came into the UFC, and he looked like a huge child. Let's be honest. I mean, he was early 20s. You can see the frame difference here. Look how much thicker he is now. He's put a lot of muscle mass onto his frame. He understands what it takes to be a really, really tall heavyweight in this division, because most guys are going to be swinging over the top and trying to land on his chin. And we've seen that happen a couple of times. So, you know, now he's working with Henry Hooft, who's also a tall guy, you know, 6'4", will be able to teach Stefan how to use his reach to his advantage. So expect more kicks in this one for sure.
Last one on this one, Dan, and it's aggression for Struve. I've listened to a couple of his interviews that he did when this fight was announced, and he said he needs to go back to being more aggressive. Now it seems like he's found himself, he has the confidence that he can become champion. Now he's gotten rid of those injury and health problems. Is starting fast and being aggressive the key to this fight for Struve?
Maybe, maybe not. But what it does show is an improvement in his confidence. Now, he's found a place in his career now where he feels like he can start turning the volume up on these guys. He can start pressuring them early. Whereas before, it almost seemed like he was waiting for them to come to him so he can employ his ground game, which obviously he's always got that to lean on in this fight, and I think he will have an advantage on the floor with Volkov. But it's striking we need to see improvements in, and we have seen slow improvements, but you've got to think, you know, a guy that's 7 foot tall, he's such an imposing character. To the layman, you would expect him to just step in there against any heavyweight and either keep them on the end of the jab and beat them up, or just jump on them and light them up. He's got all the potential in the world, but it's grasping that potential and doing something with it.
The Miocic win can't define his career. At the moment it does. And it may do for the rest of his life. He's got to win this fight. He's got to move forward. He's got to get a title push together.
Yeah, I think he also holds on to fighting Miocic again. I think he said he was his kryptonite.
The story's there. The narrative's there. He's just got to get a run together and the fight will happen.
Yeah, excellent stuff. OK, we have to pause for a moment, but we have plenty more to come. After the break, we preview the co-main event, the women's bantamweight matchup between top contenders Germaine de Randamie and Marion Renaud. Welcome back to UFC Breakdown. Time now to focus our attention on the co-main event for UFC Fight Night Rotterdam. And Dutch fan favourite Germaine de Randamie, the Iron Lady, returns to the bantamweight division to face veteran fighter from the US, Marion Renaud.
Germaine de Randamie! stuff from the Belizean bruiser.
Okay, Dan has moved to the screen. Dan, kindly, will you show us the head-to-heads for our co-main events?
I certainly will. I'm very excited about this co-main event. It's a really interesting matchup. Obviously, Germaine de Randamie is a world-class Muay Thai striker, 37-0, unbeaten. Marion Renault, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with some Muay Thai training as well, so she's not going to be clueless on the feet. She's very aggressive. Both of these ladies are very aggressive fighters, which is what makes this so fascinating. Now, Germaine is the bigger fighter. Height and reach advantage go to her. She's also the younger fighter as well. The records are pretty much the same, so we can ignore that for now. But look at the focus on striking for Germaine. Almost her entirety of her game is focused on striking. 86% takedown defense really shows you that she's focused on keeping this fight on the feet and forcing people to deal with her Muay Thai skills. Now, takedown accuracy is the one that jumps off the page to me. 0% for de Randamie really shows that she's focused on Muay Thai and she wants to keep it that way. She's not interested in going to the ground in this one. 100% takedown accuracy for Renault. It's only based on a couple of takedowns, but she's not been stopped so far. So I think she'll lean very heavily on that. But as we look at the striking accuracy and striking defense, it leans slightly towards de Randamie. The striking defense is very similar, but that shows that they're both very aggressive fighters. They don't mind stepping into range and throwing shots and taking a few at the same time. So it's a fascinating matchup, but I've got to think that Renault's got to try and get this to the floor because contending with de Randamie on the feet is, it's kind of a roll of a dice.
Nick, what a year it's been for Germaine de Randamie.
It's been crazy. It was at Rotterdam last year where she had that breakthrough performance, that TKO victory over Anna Elmos, the knee to the body and then the finish up strikes. That was what really put her on everybody's radar. Then she takes advantage of Cris Cyborg being unavailable, steps into a featherweight title fight against Holly Holm, wins the belt, controversially wins the belt, I might add. She was recognised for punching after the end of the round on 2 occasions, kind of lucky to get away with a few misdemeanors there, but she emerged with the belt. But then, crazily, she kind of turns around and says, I don't want to fight Cyborg now. And there was a whole thing. Then she ended up getting stripped of the belt. This year, she's gone from, hero to zero in a stage of 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, she was true to her values about not challenging Cris Cyborg, being a police officer. That I've heard a couple of interviews, and some of the fans I think were quite unfair. But yes, a champion must face all comers, apparently. So in this fight, though, Dan, do you think that de Randamie will lean on that wrestling defence that she learned at AKA, her time over there, keep this on the feet and away from that submission threat?
I think so, but the interesting thing in this fight is I think Germaine's going to be surprised at Marion Renault's willingness to strike. We've seen her in the past. She'll walk forward and she'll trade punches with the best strikers in the division with complete courage and confidence. So the issue with that is that she's going to start leading Germaine into a striking match and then she level changes for the takedown. As we've seen with Renault, she can work submissions from any position, but specifically off her back. So her opportunity to jump guard and pull her opponent to the floor is there, as it is in the main event with Stefan Struve. I mean, we don't talk about jumping guard very often, but we have 2 fights here where it's a highly likely possibility.
Okay, well, Dan decided to put the gloves on again after analysing both of these fighters, and he suggested a couple of techniques that we might see on Fight Night. Let's go on the mat.
This fight between Marion Renault and Germaine de Randamie pits a tough, durable Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt against a world-class Muay Thai striker in Germaine de Randamie. She does excellent work on the outside, keeping her opponents on the end of her punches, but when she closes that distance and gets into the Thai clinch, she has knees that need to be feared by everybody in the division. That's what I'm going to demonstrate for you today. The Muy Thai Clinch, better known as the plum clinch, is one of Germaine's favourite weapons. I want to explain the mechanics of it first so you understand how it works. Now, the point of the elbows go into each pectoral muscle, which gives me a leverage point, gives me a point of pivot so I can break the posture. Putting the hands on the back of the head, on the crown of the head, I drive forward with my elbows and pull down with my hands. Now, in this position, Germaine's got a few options. The obvious ones are the knee to the solar plexus, which often brings the head down, so I can bring a knee up to the chin as well. Now, that's a fight finishing technique, but sometimes you have to adapt. And in the Elmos fight, when she had her opponent backed up against the fence, her posture's broken here, but she couldn't throw a straight knee because Elmos used the knee shield. This can cause you all kinds of problems if you don't have the other options to adapt with. So from here, instead of bringing the knee straight up, she comes up to the side and then chops the knee into the midsection. It's a beautiful technique, and it comes straight up and into the side. Up and in. It's a traditional Muay Thai twisting knee, and if you hit that floating rib, you'll drop your opponent against the fence, and that's game over. If the Muay Thai clinch is Jermaine's world, then when the fight hits the mat, this is Marion Renault's world. And the best example of that is in the Jessica Andrade fight. Andrade was standing over her opponent, trying to get the finish, trying to land some good shots in ground and pound, and Renault was able to get her hips out to the side, drag her down into a triangle, and get the submission finish. And this is how it played out. So after a scuffle, Renault found herself on the mat, with Jessica Andrade bearing over her, trying to land some big ground and pound shots. Now, she covers well, but the best thing that she does is use this shin across the midsection here to control that distance and control her opponent's posture. So as the shots are coming in, she stuffs the arm and gets the leg over the top. Grabbing the shin is going to control the posture of opponent and clamp her down. This gives me time to put my foot out to the side and free the left leg. I can lock up the triangle, and now that is controlling my opponent. Now, Jessica Andrade starts to drive forward with her shoulder to use a pressure pass, which is very, very uncomfortable for me, but Renault hooks the leg, turns herself to the side, and then squeezes. That was a very opportunistic submission from a defensive position, but if she finds herself in the Muay Thai clinch against Jermaine, she can always jump guard, like she did in the Holly Holm fight. Now, I wouldn't recommend it normally in mixed martial arts, but with such an advantage on the floor, I think she can get away with it in this fight.
Okay, Dan, so pulling guard. A little Damian Maia in there.
Right, yeah, right back to Hoist Gracie days.
Okay, so you think that is an area that she just has such an advantage that that could actually work?
Well, I certainly think it's an option. You know, I mean, she's got 100% takedown defense, but her wrestling game isn't a strong suit. We don't see her shooting for takedowns and getting people down very regularly. So we have seen her jump guard. She did it twice in the Holly Holm fight. Now, Holly's a big, strong athlete who was able to, you know, to slam her way out of it and defend. But there is an option there for sure. And you've got to think as well, if Jermaine gets that Muay Thai clinch, she's got that plum clinch on the back of her head, she's open to level changes, but she's also open to jumping guard. And if you transfer that position to the floor, the Muay Thai clinch becomes the can opener. And the can opener is notorious for leaving your arms vulnerable. So I think it's an option. She can certainly tie up and cause problems there.
Okay, Nick, something else I've noted. Marion Renault, sparring partner, Cris Cyborg. Cris Cyborg is now the featherweight champion. That belt was taken from Jermaine Durandamy.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to be, you know, a fly on the wall backstage there when those two come head to heads. And, you know, I've got to go back to it. You know, Jermaine come out of the last year like a loser. She went into a title fight. She became a champion, yet in the eyes of the fans, she's been dressed up as a loser. Now, I think if this fight this week, the coming weekend in Rotterdam happens anywhere else, she probably gets booed walking to the octagon. I think the fact that it's in Rotterdam's done her a big favour. She's got to really prove herself once again as a title contender, albeit that back down at bantamweight, and she's got to put Cris Cyborg out of her mind.
Dan, a few people suggesting that Jermaine might have been fearful of Cris Cyborg. You don't buy it?
No, I don't. You know, this lady's been competing in Muay Thai for a long, long time, and she's a vicious striker. I mean, she is a murderous fighter when she gets into the clinch, and I mean, get on YouTube, find the fight of her knocking out a guy. I was offered a fight against Jermaine one time. Honestly, true story.
She had accepted to fight Dan Hardy.
I was offered the fight by her management team. Yeah, she'll fight anybody. But I mean, I think this is down to ethics. You know, this is down to her belief of the drug testing system and all that. And she's perfectly entitled to that opinion. Now, moving down to bantamweight is really where she belongs. So I'm quite happy for her to relinquish the featherweight title and let Cyborg have that and defend it, because Jermaine's home really is at bantamweight, and that's where we're going to see her best.
Yeah, and she always said to the UFC that she wanted to come back to bantamweight. Well, what a fight that is. Cannot wait for that. We are just getting warmed up here, talking all things Fight Night Rotterdam. Going to take a quick break now, but when we come back, we hear from Birmingham's Leon Edwards as he prepares to take on Bryan Barbarina, and preview the middleweight matchup between Sia Bahadizadeh and UFC debutant Rob Wilkinson. As we continue to make our way through the lineup for UFC Fight Night Rotterdam, we find ourselves looking at the featured bout in the main card between two very promising prospects, Leon Rocky Edwards of Birmingham and also Bryan Bam Bam Barbarina from the US. And Nick, a lot of fights on this card have that label of potential fight of the night, but this one definitely does.
I like Tasimov Silva myself, but I know what you're saying here.
Okay.
We've got two, welterweights, both on a real tear right now. Both of these guys are racking up big numbers in the UFC, but they're kind of doing it on the undercard more often than not. They very rarely get on the main card, despite the fact that both of them are claiming big wins right now. So this feels to me like a little bit of a coming together. Whoever comes out of this fight as the victor, you're looking at top 10, top 15 fight next.
Yeah, I think both of these fighters really let their work do the talking, and often it's emphatic stuff, which I'm going to hand over to Dan because he's at the screen and he's focused on Fight Focus.
Always, John, you know me. Let's talk about Leon Edwards first. Fundamentally sound in his striking ability. Very pinpoint accurate, sharp, nice and controlled. He looks for his individual shots, really good at working the body, and he's got a wicked, powerful left kick as well. But it's his ability to control the range that astonishes me. His understanding of when to step out and pick shots, when to disengage, and when to keep the pressure on his opponent. Look at this beautiful work against Luque up against the fence. But there's the left body kick I'm talking about. Now, it's interesting in this fight because he's fighting another southpaw fighter, so that does to a certain extent invalidate that. But if he can land it, my goodness, can he hurt people with it. And he's also got good takedown defense as well. He's got fast feet and he's got a good awareness of all of these different ranges. Excellent balance here, as you can see in this takedown. Look, manages to scramble and take top position. And we're seeing an ever-evolving game when it comes to the clinch work. He finds ways to land strikes, but he's also got options to take the fight to the floor. Look at this beautiful outside reap against Dominic Waters. Takes him down a couple of times and really causes all kinds of problems. And then against Tumenov, he takes him down, circles to the back, and this is really nice. As Tumenov's focused on the opposite side hook, he sneaks that arm under the neck and squeezes immediately. He attacks just like he does on the feet. He jumps on an opportunity and takes the life out of his opponent. Now, a contrasting style is Bryan Barbarina. Bam Bam, as we all know him, because that's a great nickname. As he walks forward, he crashes into people, gets his hands on them, and then starts lamping them with this big, powerful elbows that he likes to use. He's an aggressive fighter, and a lot of the time you'll see him give up that first round. His style tends to be, I'll take your best shots in the first round so I can beat you up in the second and third. And that's what Edwards has got to watch out for in this fight, because he can take a good shot. And he's also the spoiler. This is Wally Alves, who was unbeaten at 11-0. He's also just come off a win over Sage Northcutt in this situation. So he's beating top prospects as he goes along. As contrasting to the Leon Edwards body kick, he's got an inside low kick which caused all kinds of problems to Alves here as well. But again, southpaw against southpaw, it does take away that weapon. So how he adapts that will be interesting. Now, this was his standout performance so far. I said he usually loses the first round. In this situation, he won the first round by a beautiful stoppage over Joe Proctor. And it was that lead hook. Look at that, a really long-range hook. No twist in the body at all, so we know he's got power in his hands. And again, he catches his opponent, he sees them hurt, and he jumps on them. Knees, elbows, whatever it takes to get the job done. He's an aggressive finisher, and he likes to surge forward when he feels he's confident enough to do so.
Looking at those clips, I can't help but think that Leon Edwards is the really clean, technical operator, but Barbarina just has that style to spoil it. He's very effective, but he just keeps on knocking out these prospects.
Yeah, completely. And, Bam Bam is a product of his environment, very much so. He's from MMA Lab in Arizona. John Crouch, Benson Henderson, they all rave about this guy. He's an absolute monster, and he kind of walks people down, takes their heart away before finishing. You know, this is a guy that's only needed the judges twice in 13 career wins. You know, he's a finisher, and I think that's why the fans are really getting, getting drawn into him now as well. It's a really tough fight, this, I think, for Leon Edwards.
Yeah, and that Sage Northcutt fight, really, that announced his name.
That was the breakout
scene,
performance, of course it was, yeah. But, you know, getting that fight against late notice against Sage Northcutt, who had so much momentum behind him, and then putting in the performance he did, that really, you know, raised his stock massively.
OK, well, let's focus our attention on Leon Edwards then. He is a product of the UTC in Birmingham, which is fast becoming one of the premier gyms in the UK. We went out there to visit him to see how he's getting on in camp.
I came in when I was a little kid from the streets, came to the gym. It's definitely a family. All my training partners, all my coaches, it's all one big family and team. I got great wrestling there, great striking there, great jiu-jitsu here. Everything is there that I need. All the hard work is finally paying off. I've been dominating all the local shows, and I'm in the UFC, dominating the UFC. So it feels good to show the UK guys that can still do it. We don't have to move to America and try get there to be successful. You can stay here and still do it.
Generally, I work with a lot of kickboxers, and I've worked over the years with some people that can bang. But Leon, through those pads, that's the first time in a good few years that I actually felt it, the power through the pad. But don't tell him that, because he'll go for it even more next time. Yeah. He's really, really come on this camp, so yeah, it'd be really good if he can win by a kick knockout, that'd be good.
Barbarina. I think his attributes are just being tough. Technically, I don't think he's one of the best in the world, technically, you know what I mean? Toughness is tough, that's it. I'm going there to put him away and carry on my journey.
Yes, Leon, come on, push. Let's go, everything we got, Leon, stride.
Lost his best conditions in Birmingham. To train other athletes and Joshua and other people, and it's working for them, it's working for me, so why not?
For this time in camp now is exactly where he needs to be. We take a lot of sort of fitness tests. Last week we had him in the sport science lab. So we're getting all the benefit now, come on, let's push. So they would take all his VO2 max tests, they would do power tests with him as well, just comparing results to previous tests we've done with him. Let's push. And they're really happy with how he's looking at the moment. Come on. Drive. So rather than just doing stuff for the sake of doing it and someone saying, oh, you're looking fitter and you're looking stronger, we've got a bit of evidence to back it up. 3, 2,
September 2nd, I'm going to come forward, look to put Brian away from the referee goals, you know what I mean? I can see him KOing him in the second round. I want to go in there and just put this guy away.
It's always nice to see these fighters in their own home environments. So, Dan, Leon Edwards came to the UFC with this aura about him, this knockout artist. Then it took to the second UFC appearance against Seth Brzezinski, and we really got to see what he was all about.
It was a beautiful finish, and it was a great demonstration of how accurate and crisp his striking is. I mean, it was such a clean punch, and he knew the job was done once it landed. I mean, just look at this. He measures distance so well, he backs up, he circles away, picks his moment, and then bang, game over. Couple of shots on the floor, beautiful.
8 seconds.
And he knows the fight's done. You know, he knows when he landed that clean shot. Even when he stepped in to land those couple of extra shots to finish, they were really unnecessary. The job was done with that one punch. And when you've got the ability to put a glove on a chin one time and switch somebody's lights off, Bryan Barbarina's got to be careful of that because he likes to march forward. So he's going to be vulnerable to that early on.
He's very, very tough, is Bam Bam. But one thing that I think is selling Leon Edwards short is to say that he's just a striker. And we saw that against Tumenov. I discovered that he'd put his back out before that fight, so he wasn't able to strike to the way that he wanted to. And he was able to change things up and get the submission.
Yeah, exactly. I think Dan explained that in the breakdown as well, where he was talking about the fact that his evolution of his game. Yes, he's come into the UFC as a world-class striker, but as he proved in that fight, you know, he's grappling with a grappling master, if you like. He's winning fights on the ground as well, submission. So wonderful performance, that, and I think that more than anything else in his career so far has really raised his bar and pushed his stock up a little bit. As I say, a win here in Rotterdam, you could be talking top 10, top 15 shot next for Leon Edwards.
What about, does that apply to both fighters?
Of course it does, yeah. I think they're both kind of charging at the same time, you know. I think there's a real momentum coming out of the US with Bam Bam. Obviously over here in Europe, Leon Edwards, he's been kind of a sleeper on the card. He's always on these cards. He's very rarely on a main card. Yet he wins consistently. He's racking up these wins and he's winning against better opposition every time. I think this is a real, you know, fork in the road fight for both these guys, and the winner can really look upwards.
Yeah. Well, let's move things along to our next contest then, and we have a guy that we've only seen twice since like 2013, Sia Bahadazada. And Dan, you and I in commentary, oh my word, I'm not going to get that right every time.
Yeah, we've got some challenges on this card.
We do. It's great to see him back though. Someone that's been around at a few different camps, but he's very, very dangerous.
The killer is very dangerous, yes, of course he is. And, you know, he's become a nomad of the game, unfortunately, though. You know, every time he fights, the first thing I do when he walks to the octagon is I look and see who's cornering him for this fight, because he kind of changes with every fight. Yeah, and yet people that train with him, people that are alongside him, only say great things about him.
Yeah.
The problem is he just can't get a momentum going. I think this fight, you know, going into the Brandon Thatch fight, he was out for 2 years. Now he's been out for almost 2 years again, coming into this fight. He really needs to get his momentum going. I think he could actually do something.
Yeah, well, he was with Jackson Wink, the Black Zillions. He's besties with Alistair over him, so been doing some great work back in the Netherlands. And he has a whole nation behind him from Afghanistan. I think that's really quite something. And Paulo Thiago, well, he discovered all about him, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, what a beautiful knockout that was. And he's a tough man. I mean, he's only been stopped one other time by Koscheck, I think that was. You know, a very tough, durable fighter that just happened to walk onto a massive uppercut, perfectly timed, as Paulo Thiago was changing levels, just snuck it in there right across the chin and switched him off. He's definitely got all the potential in the world, but like you said, it's the consistency, and that's a big part of this game now.
Let's talk about his opponent, Wilkinson, then. This is the newest guy from Australia. I think he's from Tasmania. What do you know about him? From what I've seen, Dan, he's got a really strong top game. I think he's fought as high as sort of light heavyweight as well. Yeah. Maybe found his body type now. Well, he's got a tough test coming in, though.
He certainly has, but he's bringing an unbeaten record. You know, 11-0. He's definitely a finisher. He's got some good rear naked choke finishes on his record, but you know, he likes to stand and trade, and he does get a little bit reckless, a bit untidy when he gets tired. But when he first starts out, he's got good long-range strikes. And as you said, you know, moving down from light heavyweight to middleweight, he's been contending at middleweight for the majority of his career. He's going to be the bigger man in there. 6'2", real long reach, and he wrestles hard as well. He'll put a pace on Bahadazada. So, you know, if he's not fight ready, if he's not switched on after his layoff, it's going to be a long night for him.
OK, good stuff. Well, we're going to pause for just a moment, but when we come back, we have a very special guest. Darren Till will be joining us in studio. The man from Merseyside will look to continue his undefeated run in Rotterdam against Serbian finisher Bojan Veličković. UFC Fight Night Rotterdam is taking centre stage here at UFC Breakdown, and featuring on the card is one of England's hottest prospects. He joins us in studio now. Darren Till, welcome to UFC Breakdown.
Hey mate, you okay? Yeah.
I'm very well. How have you been since I last saw you?
I've been okay, just back in the gym again, innit? Getting another fight, you know, getting ready. I've had 2 quick turnovers now, haven't I? Because, you know, obviously, me long break. So, you know, I'm back, aren't I? I'm back regularly fighting now.
Good to see. Well, talking about that time off that you had before Yasin Ayari, your last opponent, how happy were you with that performance, considering that time away?
Yeah, I was happy. Like, I really did expect to knock Yasin out. Like, I really thought I'd come in there and I'd, you know, stun him in the first. But, like, I gained a lot of respect for him after the fight, like, just how tough he was. Like, he must have been in some great shape because he was recovering so quickly, you know, from me left-hand shots and most of my strikes. So, like, and it was good to get the 3-round experience in, you know, after so long, such a break. So I was happy. I was happy all round, to be honest with you.
What I want to know, because obviously Yasin is an awkward fighter. He doesn't move like most strikers, and you're facing Veličković now, who's, well, one, he's a big welterweight, and two, he's kind of awkward. He doesn't move in regular movement patterns. How do you deal with that, with someone that doesn't give you a normal look? I was actually speaking about Yasin the other day. I was speaking about how awkward he was, and I had to really, like, use intelligence over him because he wasn't just a normal striker. It's weird striking. With Bojan, I found is like, he's like a high volume striker, but he doesn't really
like, he doesn't think about what he's throwing. Like, he just throws it for the sake of throwing it, if you would like. He's powerful, he's big, he's about my size. So I think he's really going to come into this fight with me, you know, just he's going to try and outstrike me and maybe steal around with a takedown. That's really what I think his strategy is going to be. So just like from my point of view, I'm just going to be defending most of his high volume strikes and throwing strikes as I am an accurate puncher to hit him. But everything I will throw will hit and hit. So, you know.
So that's less of a thought about I need to keep winning the scorecards. It's more about I'm going to land that shot that's going to change the fight.
Yeah, I always try to land to finish a fight or to hit someone. You'll never see me throw a front kick in mid-air just for the sake of throwing it. A lot of guys in the UFC team seem to do that. I don't know whether they think it's fancy or whatever, but it's not, and you're wasting energy. So when I throw shots, it's to hit or it's to finish or whatever. And with that, judges will be seeing, you know, I know Boyan's going to be throwing most probably more shots than me, but they're not going to be landing. I'm going to be defending. I've got great movement, great head movement. But when I throw, I will land, and, you know.
Darren, I popped into the gym last week and caught you training, rolling with Terry Etam, actually, and we were chatting then, and what I took away from it more than anything was your supreme confidence. Obviously, we've seen it before, but, you know, it's almost like you feel like you're destined to achieve greatness in the UFC. So how do you plan that out in your mind? Do you think you've got time to make a realistic welterweight title shot before inevitably with your size and move up to middleweight?
Yeah, it's all about focus and like discipline in it. You know, obviously not just with training. Like I am a real hard worker, and obviously, you know, my background coming from Team Carbon, like we train hard there, but it's discipline with, like, you know, getting the right nutrition. You know, going to bed early. You know, it's all important. Not eating overnight. You know, I've recently just stopped that. I used to be a late night eater. Not like snacks, but I'd have like a late night tea. I've recently stopped that because I was, you know, going to bed heavy and waking up heavy. So it's just, that's all involved. But going back to it, confidence-wise, yeah, I believe I am the greatest fighter in the UFC right now.
That switch over to Brazil for a couple of years, was that important for you to mature as a fighter, do you believe?
Yeah, because I can just get up and go. When Colin said, Darren, just go to Brazil, will you? I just went, okay, Colin, yeah. Is that what it'll take to get to the UFC? Yeah, Dan, okay, Colin. And I went and, you know, I listened to my coach, I believed in my coach, and I'm in the UFC, you know, so along with Colin and a few other people I look up to, whatever they tell me to do, I'm ready to do. You know, my daughter right now is in Brazil, you know, I haven't seen her for a year, but as I was actually speaking to my ex-girlfriend a few days ago, I was saying this is the sacrifice that needs to be made to get where I want to be.
And we talked about the bonus or even the wages in Rotterdam and what they're going to pay to bring it over to the UK.
Sorry,
the wages, what you're going to get in Rotterdam and what they're going to bring
exactly.
over to the UK.
Everyone knows I've just signed my new contract and, you know, wages are going higher. I've never thought about the money, but now it's good to think, oh, I'm fighting in Rotterdam, I'm going to get a good check off them. I'll be able to bring, you know, my daughter over with the mother and that. So, you know, things are looking up, and it's all the fruits of hard work, mate, and dedication, and obviously belief and confidence, which I have bundles of it.
Yep. I've got one more question about your Muay Thai style, because I'm a Muay Thai practitioner, and the way that you fight is very Muay Thai. It's very, you know, Blackout, Yod Sinclair, very kind of confident and arrogant, kind of, not arrogant in a bad way, but you know what I mean? You kind of, does that weigh heavy on your opponent's confidence, do you think, when you kind of shrug things off?
Yeah, because when like, if you've seen in the Derby fight, like, Derby was throwing a lot of strikes that worked in his previous fights, but with me, like, he was throwing front kicks and I was catching, and I was basically like, what's that, son? And I remember you commented on it, but when I'm in there, and you know, it's even when I'm sparring, I've just got this air about me. I know I can figure out a way to beat any type of fighter, you know, with what they throw at me. Sometimes I need a round, like we had a professional boxer in the gym last week, and first round he got the better of me, but then the second round I was speaking to Colin after it, and Colin was like, yeah, you worked him out, and, you know, I knocked him out. So, you know, not in a bad way, I ended up catching him, but I can just figure any striker out, and I can beat any striker you put in front of me, and that's just my confidence and what I know, mate, you know.
I love it.
Looks like you visualise things a lot.
Yeah.
How are you visualising that path to the title?
I'm just going to beat everyone, you know. People are always on at me like about, oh, you need to advertise more, you need to speak, and, you know, I will at some point, but, you know, at the moment I'm still on the prelims and people are still talking about me. It's just about beating everyone and getting there, and when I do get there, you know, I'll win the title. I'm not just going to win the welterweight title. As you said, I'm a big lad. I'll have to go and win the middleweight and probably the light heavyweight, you know. it's dreams, and if you don't tell your dreams out loud to other people, you know, they're not going to come true.
Hey, look at what Robert Whittaker's done, you know. That'd be a great matchup in the future. I'd love to see you two fight. My goodness.
Yeah, he's a great fighter, isn't
Right.
he?
Yeah,
and he's just won the belt, obviously, and he's going to fight Bisping. Hopefully he's going to fight Bisping. I think he can give Bisping a good...
Yeah.
I think it'd be a 5-round war myself.
So what about Bisping GSP then, while we're on the subject?
I think just because GSP's been out for so long, Dan, I think Mike's going to take it.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think because GSP's so small, like you fought him, haven't you, Dan? And he's smaller than you, and Mike's big.
Yeah.
So I think Mike will take the fight.
Yeah, and he's scrappy. He's got good takedown defense. Difficult to hold down, you know.
And his cardio, he's so fit, Dan.
Ridiculous.
That's always been his #1 thing, hasn't it? How fit he is.
Yeah, work great.
In terms of yourself, Darren, obviously Ponzinibbio's just had a big win over Gunny Nelson and threw himself up the rankings. Stylistically, is that a fight that you think would be good for you?
I wanted to call him up because he's got to say it, obviously, hasn't he? We've all got to believe in ourselves, but he said he's the best striker in the division. He's not. I am. You know, you've got two guys, you probably say Wonderboy and Ponzinibbio, that you just got nothing on me. I'd figured them out.
That'd be a great fight for South America, you and Ponzinibbio, right?
It really
Argentina for the first time.
Because I could speak to him in Portuguese, I'd start calling him names.
Yeah, but I can't understand the trash talk if you speak Portuguese, so now I've got to learn the language.
What would you say to him? In Portuguese, what would you say to Ponzinibbio?
Eu vou bater em você.
I hate to think what the translation is. And I'm going to make it even worse because he's Argentinian, so he speaks Spanish, right? So you could confuse him even more.
He actually speaks Spanish, Argentinian, English and Portuguese. Like, that guy's multilingual.
He's very smart.
Right.
Yeah, very smart.
And obviously the art of
There,
these as well.
He's apparently the best striker.
Not having it. He's not having it.
I'm not having it, mate. Not a chance.
So setting that one up nicely. Well, listen, Darren, thank you so much for coming down to the studio today. We wish you all the very best in your preparations.
Thanks for
Have fun inside the octagon.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your insight as always. That wraps us for this episode of UFC Breakdown. To find out where you can watch UFC Fight Night Rotterdam in your territory, head on over to UFC.com. And to continue the conversation, use the hashtag UFC Rotterdam and the Twitter handle @UFC Europe. Thank you very much for your company. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you soon.